Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 110 of the You, Me, and BTC podcast. Glad to have you here for your Bitcoin and Liberty podcast. I am Daniel Brown, and I'm here with...
I guess he's trying to make me go first. John Stuart.
No, Tim Baker. That was a mid-show attempt at trying to change what microphone was being used.
I guess I won't complain because I like good sound quality. You know me. So, another multiple of 10. We like to celebrate those sometimes. It's our 11th, 10th multiple episode. That was terrible wording, but it's exciting that way. It's nice when an episode number ends in a 0. It just feels better. So today we're going to get to some interesting conversation about the block size and scaling Bitcoin. I know we've been doing this for a while, but actually, I mean, we found an article, or Tim found an article from a little over a year ago from Amir Taaki, and it's surprisingly, I don't know, I guess prophetic is a fair word to use there. So we'll get into his really early thoughts on the block size and scaling and governance and things. And we're going to talk about it some more because it's a hot topic these days, I guess. But before we get to that, I just for fun wanted to mention that Tim is by far the most hated person on the show right now. He's received 3 little bits of hate mail in the past 2 episodes. And you're welcome to send yours along too. You can leave a comment at youmeandbtc.com. You can send us a tweet to @youmeandbtc. And I don't know if you're on YouTube, leave a comment. If you're listening there on Spreaker, leave a comment. Wherever you like, get in touch with us and tell us how much you hate Tim. That's our goal for today, is to feel the hate for Tim, because it's a good feeling. I'm not going to lie. So
it's not very kind of you, but
that's the point,
yeah,
Tim.
Send in whatever you want, but I'd also appreciate it if, because I know there's some of you out there who do care about me and do enjoy the unique and special points of view that I bring to the show.
I mean, you haven't had any love mail at all recently,
ever.
But
I don't
you can
think
say
ever.
that if
I don't
you
think
want.
it's like recently, Daniel. I think it's ever, but
Well, have any of us got love mail?
I don't think so.
Yeah, look, we've gotten plenty of it. So
but like
I'm
specifically.
Specifically, I've been told that my voice sounds like smooth butter, so you know. I mean, that's pretty loving.
It's a little bit too loving.
I will read the one bit. This is from Bruce Berry on YouTube, and he's commented before. He knows us a little bit. We've had some back and forth, and he says, "Fuck, dude, fire Tim already. He's making your show lame as hell. Thanks for listening, man. Thanks for speaking the real truth." It's good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Well, even though we hate Tim, I'm going to turn it over to him to talk about Amir Taaki and the block size prophecies.
The black size prophecies. Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
So
this is a... Daniel's already screamed at me, so if anyone has a complaint about it being a year old, fuck you. It's from the Bitcoin magazine.
Tim, I more than screamed at you. Like, for 10 minutes, I didn't even listen to what it was about. I'm just like, no, we're not doing that.
That is true. And I was doing my best. And I pushed through, I persevered, so whatever. But yeah, it's from the Bitcoin magazine. It's by Aaron Van Weerdoom. I don't know who he is, but I guess he did an interview with Amir Taaki last year. So... he introduces Taaki a little bit, and I'll do the little introduction if you haven't heard of him. Amir Taaki is, according to the writer of the article, he compares it to he calls him the enfant terrible of Bitcoin. And basically...
Enfant?
That was a terrible pronunciation.
Enfant, like the French?
Well, that's what it is. But
what's the pronunciation then?
No, that's what it is.
I took French 3, not you, motherfucker.
Yeah, so it's what, French for kid or something?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
I don't know. I don't really know what that phrase means. So, anyway, Amir Taaki, he's basically known for just living kind of wherever. He kind of just moves through Europe and seems to be a little like he's a squatter, but he always has electricity somehow, or at least power for his laptop. But he's done a lot of work. He's worked with Cody Wilson, who we've talked about on the show.
Tim, it's not that hard to just like go to a coffee shop or something. Like, how hard is it to have electricity?
Yeah.
For like one
I'm trying
computer.
to build it up a little bit more than just he moves around and goes to Starbucks, but not Starbucks, but the Europe version.
Anyway.
Well, you could also be like the Google guy who lives in a truck whose laptop can last him the night on charge.
Yeah.
Yes, that is true.
Probably has a Mac.
No, there is a picture of him in this, and every time I've seen him interviewed, he has a fuck ton of stickers on his laptop. But
I'm sure he runs Linux. Like, I would almost
he definitely
promise
does,
you.
yeah. Anyway, Taaki's worked a lot with Cody Wilson, who we've talked about on before. He was part of Defense Distributed with the 3D printed weapons. And they also worked together on Dark Market and Dark Wallet. And as of now, Dark Market is kind of forked into Open Bazaar. But he's still kind of like the front man or the person who talks to people about Dark Wallet, which is a very privacy-centric Bitcoin wallet. We've talked about it before. But anyway...
Yeah, he's definitely one of the like hardest core privacy freaks that I mean, even in the Bitcoin space, which loves privacy, he's like the hardest core.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the more like hardline anarchist ones who want to make sure that Bitcoin stays with that. And that's kind of what the article's about. With talking with him, they start off the interview with... He asks him, Amir, your main focus within the Bitcoin sphere is clearly on the anonymous features of Bitcoin and keeping the internet currency that way. Why do you care about this so much? I'll kind of summarize what he says. He says that anonymity is important because the current financial system is rigged against us. Taaki's view is that the kind of our economic system in general is always, or is bad. So his whole thing is that trying to make Bitcoin work into our current system or become part of it and compete like inside of it is, I mean, I think he realizes that it could. He'll just go with whatever fork goes different from it, but he's not too concerned with that. He has no real stake in that. He's not worried about making sure that people are able to use it at like MasterCard. He's more concerned with the anonymity of it, or the potential for anonymity of it, and just be your own bank, like that kind of principle. Not the principle of Bitcoin, because I don't want to act like there's some kind of theory, like special part of Bitcoin, like Bitcoin has to be some pure thing, but he sees it as a tool more for anonymity, decentralization, and he realizes that if you want it to get bigger, it has to get more centralized. That's just the way it works. It's not going to be different than the current systems.
Yeah. I mean, that's going way beyond just this question, but yeah, that is a big point of his, and I'm sure we'll get into all that a lot.
That's pretty much what he says in here, because he says like the anonymity part of it is to avoid everything about the current system. He wants to avoid taxes. He wants to launder. He says it enable us to launder money, facilitate us to evade restrictions on how to manage our resources, just whatever. And he says it will protect the small guy. Then the interviewer goes into the next one saying, aren't the taxes for the small guy? And Taaki just continues to say, it's not very much. Like, most of the stuff does not go to the little guy. Bernie Sanders is actually not giving away millions in free student care. He's not, like, where is he getting all this free fucking money from?
No. I mean, Bernie Sanders would give out, I don't know, whatever, student scholarships.
No, I don't think he will, because he's just going to say they fucking will.
No, I mean, I would not be a single bit surprised if Bernie was able to, and if he was president, of course he would try to increase welfare benefits and everything and whatever. What Amir is saying is that just because welfare sounds like a nice thing, but it's actually not helpful. he says it's not empowering. He says that a lot. He says collecting welfare is not empowering. Paying rent is not empowering. Working for the man is not empowering. So it's not about, it's not like Amir is saying that there's no such thing as welfare. He's saying that welfare is not helpful to people. It's not beneficial. That's his belief.
Yeah.
And and that's, I mean, I'm on board with that, of course. I mean, and that's what I was going to say about the first question too. Is he says that the financial system is rigged against us. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. And of course, we've had our issues with how far to take libertarianism and how far to take anarchy, and it's something we've struggled with even on the show, and there's some tough questions. But at least that base there, the idea that the system is rigged against us, the idea that welfare is not a great way to live, I mean, I think we agree with that, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, he says it later again, but he says that it's a little bit further up from where you were reading, I think, but the cost of living in our society is artificially high.
Yeah.
So
that's in the answer to the second question, right?
Yeah, it's in the answer to the thing about the taxes used by the state to help the guy. So the taxes that might go into, which, I mean, that is the question, and I don't think, well, I guess it has to go into welfare, so yeah, never mind.
Yeah, well, it's like taxes help you, maybe, but then they also make things more expensive. Like if people are getting free money from taxes, then prices are bound to go up because people have more money to spend. So it's like a zero-sum game.
Yeah. And he makes the point, too, that like it's not empowering, and it's also just, it fucks with people. Whenever you even if you're not on welfare, just the system you're in, but especially the ones on welfare, it's not, like, I mean, he says it's not empowering, obviously, but it's all it does is just perpetuate a system. Like, it's not at all a fix for the system, and all it is showing that it's bad.
Yeah. So you're saying that,
like, welfare isn't something that it doesn't fix things. It just makes things last. Like, it holds off something bad happening. Like, not necessarily, like, for the individual family, yeah, welfare can help, but it doesn't help further humanity. That's a weird phrase, furthering humanity, and you kind of
No, I mean, I get what you're saying.
No, I'm talking to, like, myself. Like, I like the idea of it, because he says it later, again, about, like, what is needed to, like, make people better. And, I mean, you can, if people can or can't do that, that's up to you and what you think, but definitely something like welfare is not something that incentivizes people. Or it actually, like, it like takes away, it de-incentivizes them to try something else and to try to be more, like, to do something, and you just get used to this life that's just it's just flat. Like, he talks about, it's just this just life of just constant, just, well, we're going to be supported, so what the fuck, it doesn't matter.
I completely agree. I mean, it helps them live, maybe, if they need it, but it doesn't help them, survive. It doesn't help, or maybe, I said that the other way around. Yeah, it's the other way around. It helps them survive, but it doesn't help them live. It doesn't help them progress or anything like that. And that's all good stuff to say, but, I mean, I think we all agree with that, and I think for the most part, our audience is gonna just know and agree that welfare is not the best thing in the world.
Yes, but also with welfare, what he said before about it, just the whole system being rigged, it's not necessarily a good thing just to get Bitcoin to be part of that system. Like, just because you're getting, like, if in the future people are getting welfare on Bitcoin, is that necessarily better than just getting welfare on EBT? Is they called EBT cards? Do you know?
Something
it's like EBT
that.
Or some kind of acronym. Yeah,
I know what you're saying, but what makes you think that that's what? Are you saying Amir wants that?
No, I'm saying that some people are so obsessed with just making Bitcoin bigger, more acceptance, or being,
okay,
being positive about wow, Bitcoin's going to just take over everything, and it doesn't matter. It has the possibility to just make its own system and just tell the rest of the world to just go on with whatever they want to do with this stupid. Like Bitcoin can be a system for people who would rather. I don't know. Like he kind of says it, but live a little bit more dangerously. Like you won't have like a net for yourself like you would in the current system, but you at least have the freedom to just do with your money what you want, to keep it with you, to always have access to it, but you pay that price then with not having it. Like. I already said enough about welfare, so...
Yeah. I don't want to beat it to death, but I think... I know why you're emphasizing it more now. It's because it's kind of like the conversation that we have about regulation. There are some people that say, like, oh, let's regulate it, let's tax it because it'll make it more accepted, more mainstream. And Amir is saying, like, we're not going for mainstream. We're not going for widespread acceptance. We would like that, sure, maybe. But the truth is, this is about rejecting the state and things like taxes and things like welfare.
But what I also like is he's also not harping on we need to do it a certain way. We can't make the block size bigger. Like I don't think anywhere in the article he really comes out and says that we just have to switch to another altcoin or something like that. But he's not.
Well, I think he even says at one point, if we don't increase the block size, like, transaction fees will just increase, and maybe that's okay. Like, depending on what you want to use it for, that might not be that big of a deal to just pay more.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that, and we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, it has so many benefits that he's saying it might be worth paying for. I totally agree with that. Let's jump on to the next.
The whole way that he's kind of going with that. Just, I don't know. I think ourselves included, like most people, are trying to find kind of like this balance where we're like, well, yeah, we want it to become more popular, but we don't want it to lose anything. And he's kind of just like, well, why do you care about it? Like, why do you care if people are buying their coffee with Bitcoin? Like, is that really even the point?
Oh, exactly. And I mean, it's an important thing to think about because I'm sure we're guilty of this too, like a ton. I'm sure we've said lots of things like, oh, and maybe me more than you two, because I don't know. I like the idea of Bitcoin going mainstream, but it is worth remembering that it's not like, it doesn't really matter what other people do it, how many other people use it. I don't care. Well, I don't know. I don't care how many people use it. I kind of care how many people accept it just because I want to be able to use it. So, I mean, there's a little bit of both there, but yeah, I mean, it's worth remembering that. I was just going to say it's worth remembering that there's more to it than just going mainstream. That's all. Anyway, yeah, we've talked about a lot of stuff already, so we're going to move on to the next question. The tools you are developing can also be used by arms dealers or terrorists. While there's even an alleged IS document floating around the web which mentioned the dark wallet. Surely these are not things you support. And the next question is pretty similar. And it is funny because, like we said just a little bit ago, Amir said, hey, you can use this to launder money. Isn't that great? And then there's a question about the terrorism. And then the next question is, but wouldn't it be wiser to actually promote dark wallet? Or wouldn't it be wiser not to actually promote dark wallet as a money laundering tool? And basically Amir says that, I don't know, I guess it's kind of a classic argument against any kind of official laws. He just says, look, you can try to manage the world, you can try to make laws, you can try to tell people what to do, but it's not going to be profitable, it's not going to be successful, it's not really going to be effective unless the people are already trying to work against whatever is outlawed. Is that a fair summary, do you guys think, of what he's trying to say? Just that, listen, you can make laws, but if people aren't already against it and turning it down and turning it away, then what's the point? I mean, it's kind of like the NAP. If you have to use force to tell people what to do, you might not be in the right boat. I don't know. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. He pretty much, it doesn't take that much assessment with him. He pretty much says exactly what he means.
No, I know he says what he means for the most part. I'm asking if I'm summarizing it.
Yeah, and I'm
very
saying
well.
It's kind of hard to mess up what he means.
Okay. Are you tired of Bitcoin dice and ready for something different? Try LuckyBit, the original falling coin game, at luckybee.it. It's the most exciting Bitcoin game on the web. You can bet on 5 different payout lines and win up to 999 times your bet. You can even use their faucet to get some free Bitcoin. Dice is boring. Play different at LuckyBit. Check it out at luckybee.it. John, you want to just grab the next question just for fun?
Okay, then why is the narrative so important? Yeah, well, he says his answer. I could probably just read the whole thing because it's really short. Because the design of Bitcoin is not set in stone.
Oh, I love this one. I forgot.
It evolves and morphs through the actions of people. There's this silly honey badger meme going around, like Bitcoin doesn't give a fuck. Bitcoin is the honey badger of money. But that's false. Bitcoin is a consensus system subject to all the different power groups acting upon it, and Bitcoin certainly can be corrupted in very big ways.
Yeah, honestly, this is a huge one for me. And I might have briefly mentioned this in the past couple episodes, but I know I really went in depth in the Bitcoin news show that I help out with sometimes. It's usually on Monday nights. But I kind of said a lot of this stuff, mostly the last few sentences, that it is subject to all kinds of different powers. And I remember emphasizing on this show, like, hey guys, listen, because we were kind of comparing Bitcoin to gold. And I think I said something like, gold has a certain amount of value because it has certain properties. I mean, even if the only property was as a paperweight, it still has, like, you don't have to trust that a piece of gold is going to hold down a piece of paper. It just does. That's gravity. That's why gold has, not the paperweight thing, but various uses. That's why gold has value, because it's a physical thing and it can do physical things. And I remember saying with Bitcoin, as much as we would like to say that it's a lot like gold, and it is in a lot of ways, it's similar to gold, but the truth is you have to remember, and even we also like to say that it's trustless. We like to say that there's no trust involved in Bitcoin, and that's true to an extent, but you do have to remember that the code can be changed, and okay, you can ignore those changes, and that's a pretty valuable aspect of the currency that we've talked about before, but it is still subject to all kinds of different power groups, just like Amir says. And I think that's something that we don't recognize enough. Would you guys agree? Am I making sense?
Yeah, I feel like, didn't we talk about this with coin stacks, like in one of the very early episodes? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about, but not sure.
I remember him talking about something where he started talking about laws of physics and stuff like that.
Well, yeah. Okay,
and how
yeah.
You could describe value in those sort of ways. And I think he did apply that to Bitcoin in a certain way, because what Bitcoin does is mathematical and scientific. But unlike gold, it is subject to be changed. You can't change gold and it still be gold.
That is exactly right. Yeah, I do remember that. And it was a cool comparison, because he was saying, like, Bitcoin is almost like an element on the periodic table. It has its rules and they're set. But it is important to remember that they're not actually set. they're not actually 100% trustworthy, because people could come in and change them, and they could change the culture. They could convince the community to do X, Y, or Z, and that's a pretty important difference, I think. And we haven't always recognized that. So,
yeah, I think like the idealistic side of me tends to say not so much that Bitcoin is itself unstoppable, but maybe that the idea of it is, like, now that it's happened, it's kind of like Pandora's box is open. There's a stronger case for that, but I mean, you could also argue even against that. But I think what he's saying here, I totally agree with, just in the sense that the actual thing that we call Bitcoin right now is still open to interpretation.
Right. And you're right about the idea of Bitcoin. That's kind of how I say this a lot. We know that crypto is here to stay. And you're right. We don't know that for absolute certain, whatever. But I'm pretty darn sure that crypto is here to stay. Bitcoin, there are some question marks there. So definitely, I think that fits pretty well. All right. So you want to grab the next one, Tim?
Sure. Is Bitcoin being corrupted right now? He says in some ways, yes, the Bitcoin Foundation is trying to establish itself as a central point of Bitcoin through which it can fund and steer development, while at the same time working together with the state and Wall Street. He's saying that, or at least that Amir believes that the government, because the foundation is working to kind of appease them, the government is going to try to push the foundation and all that stuff to make Bitcoin go in certain directions, and it's kind of up in the air as to, I mean, nobody really knows, I guess, what's going on exactly behind the scenes. We did talk the other week about the Bitcoin Foundation trying to be more open, but every single entity, there aren't too many entities that say we're going to completely hide everything we do from you, and if we have any kind of outside involvement or powers leaning on us, we're going to tell you about them. So that's my negativity again, though, so whatever. He makes a point that Gavin is paid by the foundation, so he's going to be most likely going to develop things in the way they want. And also that he thinks too many people with that he thinks the corruption isn't necessarily just from, like, it's not from people going, yeah, let's fuck up Bitcoin. It's from people saying, here, Bitcoin is this new way we can process payments because it'll be faster, quicker, more efficient than other ones, and let's push it in that direction. And I don't know if I don't think it's in the answer to this question, but it goes along with this, where he says that, or maybe he doesn't even say it, but there's, like, sometimes people do things just to mess something up, or just because they don't like it. But sometimes it's worse whenever people get in their head that they're doing the best thing with the Bitcoin or with anything, and then they turn almost like they're so focused on their own way of doing it and their own idea of it that they become like militant and just angry at anyone else. And if you're trying to hold them back from it, then you're evil and you're wrong.
Yeah. They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That's like a misappropriation, but I guess it applies.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first part of this question is kind of what we talked about on the actual first question, where we talked about how some people want to regulate it just to make it go mainstream. And he's saying here again, like, the foundation works with the big corporations. They make changes just to try to appease people, like you said, Tim. And I think that's a valid concern, but I mean, a very valid concern, because there are people who are going to make sacrifices and take away the good things just so that more people will use it. Now, I mean, it's kind of a case-by-case thing. If you want to say, is this good or is this bad? I can't say those things are absolutely true, that you must never appease people, because there might come a day where the people want really good things. I mean, but it is, I mean, yeah, like I said, a valid concern and something you absolutely have to think about with every change. And then that's what he gets into with the second part of this answer. And this is the prophetic part that we've been talking about. He mentions the block size limit, and he says how Andreessen wanted to increase it, and of course he still does. And he says that would raise the maximum number of transactions at the cost of even further centralization of mining. There might be a grammatical error there, because Amir is saying that Andreessen he wants a bigger block size limit. Okay, no, I guess he does say it right. He wants a bigger block size limit, but the cost there is mining centralization. And yeah, it's a little bit prophetic because it's a year old, but that's what we've been talking about for like 6 episodes in a row now. So that's interesting. And he says that's the opposite direction of the idea, or to the idea of Bitcoin as a decentralized, private, and uncensored system. So yeah, I think that's pretty crazy, and I'll just keep rolling then on the next question. You don't really see Bitcoin. Oh, this is huge. You don't really see Bitcoin as a payments innovation, do you? And this again is just like we've been talking about. It's not about making people happy. It's not about making payments easier. I mean, it's not about making this like Visa or MasterCard. I mean, those would be nice, but the truth is, it's about, for Amir, and to a large extent, I think I would agree, but still, I just want to clarify, this is Amir talking. It's about the anonymity, it's about decentralization, and he gets into the thing about buying, like you said, I think it was you, Tim, about buying Bitcoin with the coffee, and he's like, no, we don't need to have all these miners crunching numbers just so you can buy a coffee. That's insane. And yeah, I don't know. I think these are some pretty valid points. That's what it comes down to, is it's not so much about making it perfect and super fast and super convenient. It's about the benefits of privacy and anonymity. And that's actually where the cost comes in, which I think you both mentioned a little earlier. Those benefits are worth paying for. And that's why Bitcoin transactions cost $30 each, which is crazy. And we've mentioned that statistic before, and maybe it was even more expensive. But that's crazy. The amount of mining power put into every transaction is $30, or it was a year ago. Who knows what it is now, but it's a lot. And it's subsidized with inflation. But the point is, it's expensive. And Amir is saying that's okay. It's allowed to be expensive because it's so beneficial. And
well, yeah, if it's too expensive for how beneficial it is, then people will just quit using it.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I agree. Anybody want to grab the next question?
He touches. What's interesting in this, when he touches on the use of this word scalability, because the guy says we do not increase the block size. Bitcoin would merely be able to handle 7 transactions per second, meaning its scalability is rather limited. He says scalability. Be careful using the word, because if we increase the block size, the bloated he says the bloated blockchain would make it harder for people to run full nodes. This is where he gets into, you need bigger software or bigger hardware to store all the data as it gets bigger and bigger, which then just pushes it into large mining pools. Because as it gets bigger, it's harder and harder for the individual person to run their own node, or just like feasibly, like for the average Bitcoin user to want to run something. It needs to be not. I mean, it can be, but if you want it to get bigger, it has to get more centralized. You can't have it get bigger and more people accept it and then still have the anonymity. It's just, he keeps on just going back to that point that you can't really, it's the whole you can't eat your cake and have it too or something like that.
Right.
Which, yeah, you can't have both. It has to be one or the other. And if you think Bitcoin is better for doing payments, he doesn't agree with you, but you're going to have to let other people get in control of your money again.
Yeah, so what I would basically say to that, and it's more of the same, stuff we just mentioned a lot about the block size, and it's kind of prophetic, but it's a good technical, not a super in-depth, but, he just kind of gives some practical reasons for why a bigger block size might not be great. And what I would say is, I agree that raising the block size could have issues. It could lead to centralization, and it might not be the best thing to do just to increase transaction size. I agree that, like you said, Tim, for the time being, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have a ton of anonymity and have fast transactions. Like those are...
No, it's not that. It's you can't have fast anonymity, fast transactions, and broader adoption.
Whatever. I agree that there are drawbacks to the block size. What I would say is that maybe that problem can be solved. Maybe, we haven't solved it yet, and I would say the block size increase is just kind of a stopgap measure. But just because with Bitcoin right now, just because it takes an increase in block size and some centralization to increase transactions, doesn't mean that it's logically and physically impossible to have anonymity and a higher transaction volume. There's no law that says, they're inversely proportional. As transaction volume increases, anonymity decreases. There's no law.
Yeah.
It's just a problem that needs to be solved. I think anyway.
Yeah, one part of this that I thought of was segregated witness, which is obviously pretty new, and it wasn't in anybody's idea like back at... Well, maybe somebody had thought of it back then, but it wasn't like a thing that people were talking about a year ago. But the other thing that I'm thinking is like, I don't know, we talked about the 21, whatever, what are they called? 21.co or something?
Yeah, 21 Inc.
Yeah, 21 Inc. That's what it is. I couldn't remember. But like the thing is, there is like potential issues with having it being harder to run a full node, but at the same time, as the capacity for transactions get larger, doesn't also the number of potential miners get larger? And if we have a thing where people's light bulbs are mining, like that we've thought about, or that 21 Inc. has talked about doing with having everybody's phones being miners, maybe it's not as, I don't know, maybe at that point it would be less dangerous to try to increase the block size and still be able to have normal people running miners. Just because you have so many more people who are able to use it. Now the problem with that is that not everybody in the world is going to know how to run a full node, or like going to want to go through the learning process to be able to do that. But I don't know. Do you guys know where I'm going with that? Does any of that make sense? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I guess the argument against that would be like, if we increase the block size, it's going to be less cost efficient to have a miner on a phone or in a light bulb or whatever, because it's gonna cost more to manage more data and everything. I think that's the argument. I don't know enough to back up either side really, but yeah, it is true that having a miner and everything would be a huge benefit. So I think I'm going to just briefly hit the next question, almost skip it, because it's a lot of what we've been saying. It's like, well, the question is, but the general public doesn't care about all this. They just want cheap and fast transactions. And again, his response is, like we've been saying, well, yeah, they care about mass adoption way too much. And you know, we have to try to have, he talks a lot about like a cultural revolution, and it's kind of philosophical stuff, a cultural movement. And I guess he kind of mentions two philosophers, I think, who is, it's interesting to try and interpret this. Yeah, I guess they must be philosophers or something. Fina Venko and Raumismos, who they kind of have opposite opinions. Who one of them says that you can have that kind of revolution, and one of them says you can't have that kind of cultural movement, whatever. So, I mean, it's a tough question. It's true that you know, the public is not necessarily on board with the same values as Amir Taaki. I mean,
that's not surprising.
Exactly. I mean, everyone,
for a guy who squats throughout Europe.
Yeah, there's no one who is on the same page as any individual. I mean, everyone's different, so it's a tough thing to think about. But anyway, I want to move on to the next question because it's an important one, and it's again almost prophetic. How would you suggest we move forward on a protocol level? And he actually calls out Mike Hearn here, and he says Mike Hearn was just pushing out an extension that would kind of eliminate double spends, but it has problems, or it had problems, whatever. And yeah, I mean, this is what overall he's basically saying we need to take a step back. We need to stop, you know, innovating every little corner of Bitcoin that we can find. We just need to make it solid. We just need to make it, who cares how expensive it is? Who cares how fast it is? Let's just make it complete and secure. And I mean, yeah, it's interesting because in the past, we've said, you know, I guess I would say that's kind of maybe the exact opposite camp of the block size increasers or whatever, you know. I mean, and I sympathize with both sides. I mean, I as much as we've been saying that Bitcoin doesn't have to be mainstream, I still think, you know, a few megabytes isn't going to be deadly. I appreciate it as a stopgap measure while we solve those problems that I was saying need to be solved. So I appreciate the idea that we need to increase it, but I also see value here. I mean, who cares if it's super efficient? Let's just make it solid and secure and anonymous, whatever, all that stuff. Any thoughts at all?
Yeah, while you were talking, I kind of just started thinking about the whole Mike Hearn thing where he's saying now that Bitcoin failed. It's a failed experiment. And it's kind of interesting, like, reading this thing from a year ago where, like, I don't know, it seems like the reason that Mike Hearn said it's failed is because it's not, like, it's not getting accepted the way we thought it was going to. It's not as big as we thought it was going to be. And, like, if you compare that to this, it's almost like the idea of what's successful and what's failure is completely opposite. And maybe you could say that it's like it's already, as long as we can still have these anonymous transactions and the things that are important, it's not going to fail. Like, even if there's only a couple people using it, it's still a success.
Yeah, I generally agree with that. The trouble then is, and that's what we said a lot last week, is like it's always going to be there, and that's true. The trouble is, like, if the user base really is super small, then it doesn't matter that you still could use it, practically you might not be able to, because whoever you want to transact with might not use Bitcoin if it's such a small, tiny group. So I agree that Bitcoin, in a lot of ways, it never could go away, but it might just become unusable if people aren't using it.
I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that I take the point of view that I just said. It's almost more just like contrasting the way Taaki is talking about it with the way with Mike Hearn. Just that I just see like reading or that happening like so recently, and then reading this right after. It's just like the dichotomy is so strong.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I think I agree. Yeah. Well, I guess we're about ready to wrap up. Then I'll leave it up to whoever takes it to get the last question.
I guess I'll take the last question. It's you're obviously very passionate about these issues, and you don't hold back in your voicing your opinions. As a result, you're berated. In voicing your opinions, as a result, you've berated some of the Bitcoin developers before, and in particular because of their cooperation with regulators. I'm really fucking this up. Can you understand why they'd be annoyed with your attitude at all? And he goes on to talk. He's explaining people's attitude, so it's obviously going to be slanted against them, but he says some of them are just dumbasses who think that we need a government to protect us. Most of them think of them. This is, I think, what I was trying to get at before. I think I remember this. A libertarian ninja going through the shadows to sabotage the system from within. Like everyone who wants Bitcoin to grow, and they say that they want it to be adopted, and they do want it to be adopted, but somehow they think that by Bitcoin becoming bigger, it's going to be a better system than MasterCard or Visa is. And then because of that, anyone who takes an opposite opinion is then against like what they are standing for, and they'll try to attack that, and they'll try to put down that idea. And he's saying that this kind of thinking and the kind of trying to get mass adoption and get the public to accept it takes away from their kind of he says their ethics. He's saying that they're losing their purity, losing like what they started out as Bitcoin, as libertarians, as something that was your own bank, as something that focused on anonymity, and they get caught up in trying to make it bigger. And then by the time it's bigger, it's going to be too big to change. So then you just lose your next, like, he's saying Bitcoin is a tool to try to make things better by just making a new system. He doesn't think, and he doesn't agree with people who think that Bitcoin can make the current system better by just implementing itself into it or by destroying it from within. He would rather just say, go do your own thing.
Yeah, he talks a lot about compromise, and he's basically saying if some people are willing to do one evil for a greater good, but he says that's the real path to corruption. If you compromise once, it becomes easier to compromise again, and eventually you'll end up with GovCoin or CorpCoin.
I just read that part, and I should have mentioned that.
GovCoin. Yes,
coin.
To the moon. CorpCoin to the moon. Yeah. No, I mean, I have to say, I mean, I appreciate his passion, his commitment. I love a lot of his ideas, and I mean, I couldn't fully commit to everything he says, but I think he's a pretty rational person who thinks straight, and yeah, I don't know. That's about it. I like this interview. I agree. I mean, that the idea of compromise and doing one evil for a greater good, that's, again, kind of the classic argument against the state. It's like the state does evil things, and they might even admit it. They might admit that invading another country is not fun, it's not great, but they say that they're doing it for a greater good, and that's not okay. And that's the real path to corruption. I mean, yeah, I like that. That's some pretty decent stuff. So, anything before we do advice of the day?
I'll say mine, and it's just the old "be careful what you wish for," because he points this out again and again and again and again and again, that you're always going to pay a price for something. I mean, I keep on saying always. Daniel did make the point that at some point we could fix it, and John helped that with, but you have to think about the consequences. So, I mean, I don't know how this is advice for anyone unless you're building an altcoin. But just realize what you do has consequences that you need to look further down the line than just one step to fix one problem. And that's pretty much advice for really anything, but... Yeah,
no, it's good. Thing about consequences, always important. I think
focus on them. Don't ever let them get out of your head, and just focus on them forever.
Well, I have something. I've had to pee for like the last 10 minutes, and I think it just reminded me.
Stay done with this.
There's that book American Gods. I think there's like one dude in there who's at some point he says something like, "Never like pass up an opportunity to pee because you don't know when the next time is going to be." So every time you have the chance to pee, do it, because you might get stuck somewhere where you can't pee.
Okay. That's actually very good advice.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just going to be, like he said, don't necessarily worry about it going mainstream. Because, when you think about it, is there really, for me, is there benefit to it going mainstream? I mean, I already can use it to buy just about anything I need. So why am I so concerned about making it even more mainstream? I mean,
so you can
would be
buy
nice.
Coffee at Starbucks with it, because it makes such a difference if you
buy
buy that.
I pay in Bitcoin. You can have
it
stickers.
makes such a difference to buy a coffee in Bitcoin, to spend your $1.85 or whatever in Bitcoin than it does in USD.
Yeah, I mean, that would be cool. I'm all for that if we can make it happen. But like we've been saying, and like Amir said, it's already here. It already has anonymity. It already has pretty quick and pretty cheap transactions. Let's enjoy that. And if the price goes up over time, it might even be worth paying for. So yeah, just remember that it's pretty cool. It's pretty helpful. It's got value. So you don't freak out about changing it too quickly, I guess I would say. Honestly, I'm still, like I said, I think I would be okay with the block size increase a little bit, just as a stopgap. But yeah, like we've been saying, just remember it's not that big a deal. So
nothing really matters.
All right, guys.
What would Amir do? WWAD. Let's make stickers.
All right, we'll see everyone next week. All the music was from John Stuart. Thanks, John. Check out our website.
Except for one thing at some
Shut
point.
Up, Tim. Shut up, Tim. Nobody gives a fuck. Why would you distinguish that? Honestly, why would you distinguish
that? I felt like making a difference. I'm sorry.
All the music was from John Stuart. Check out our website, you, me, and btc.com. Leave your hate mail for Tim. Leave your love mail for me, because I know you've got plenty of that. And come back next week on Thursday and enjoy the show. Peace.
Peace.